This video and its content are protected by and operate underneath the guides of the Fair Use Act. It will be used for reporting possible teachable moments, but most importantly, my commentary and review. So, hey, YouTube and anyone who gets butthurt, do not come copyright striking my channel. Also, everything in this video is allegedly according to what has been alleged, because even if we see them do it with our own two eyes, hear it come out of their mouths with our own two ears, or read it in court docs, it is still alleged because we weren't there, so we don't know what really happened.
That girl Henny, y'all gotta go to her channel.
The girl Henny, do you know who she is?
She a blogger or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, where did this lady come from?
Girl been on your ass.
She on your life, G.
Shout out to Henny over there.
Yeah, what's poppin', Henny? Gang. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click that notification bell so that you get notified whenever I do a video. What is poppin'? Hey to all of my returning Henny gang mob down. Uh-oh. Yeah, now let's get into this topic and let's get into these tweets because baby, shout out to my brother River. He says, dang, on bottles of baby oil got me flipped. Listen, let me explain something to y'all. Now, I use baby oil. When I get out the shower, I put baby oil on my skin, and I was looking at my baby oil like, is Diddy the reason why I sometimes am not able to get my baby oil? And then I've got so many questions because was it just regular baby oil? Did he use the aloe vera baby oil? Was it the cocoa butter baby oil? Like, what? Was it scented or not? Is this why? Is this why your skin always looked hydrated and lubricated? I don't know. But since hearing all of this stuff, I'm going to be very honest with y'all. I've been envisioning the freak-offs in that blue light like they do on Belly. And then there's some people that I saw and I was like, hell no. But that's what I've been envisioning since hearing 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube. And who needs that much lube? It's lube. What? Anyway, all jokes aside, Meek Mills went on a Twitter spree yesterday because let's look at some of the things that his activity prior to, okay? Now we're going to go to the 11th. Meek was tweeting, okay? He was tweeting on the 11th. And then we barely got any activity on the 12th and, just one tweet. And then the 13th came and he posted a couple things. Then the 15th and we got a retweet and another retweet on the 16th. But then yesterday, Meek was tweeting back to back different random things. Like, my voice so powerful as a black man from the ghetto worldwide. They want it gone. I'm a real king straight out the trenches under control of no human. They learned how to damage. Can't stop us. Of brands from bots and campaigns like politicians. They manipulated these devices so bad, and I'm not with them ninjas like me without a full school education gained world influence and a different education. I didn't even want to be in this mix, LOL. That's why I never wanted to start speaking up, doing good. When I was out here lost, just going along with that on one train of thought, get high, unalive each other, and spend your money on clothes and jewelry. That's why we be thugging. We seen this happen to every black man. I be doing unseen black ghetto kid-ish. Now I'm gay. LOL, I get it. Meek, that's not why they're calling you gay. From the streets of Philly to becoming a millionaire, to help reform the system, to bridge a gap of billionaires, to be interacting with the rap culture that results in success. It's a lot of people hating on me on the low. They don't play with they don't play with pew pew. They do campaigns. In other news, I bought a farm the other day. What? You can't rewrite history. It's all documented, from school to jail to YouTube to being out here live. I don't have to do crazy ish to be famous or cross people to get money. God doing this, not me. But he just, this was his tweet 13 hours ago. Now, I don't know. I'm saying he's in Africa because I guess that's what he's trying to allude to. That this is Africa. I don't know. I just said Meek was in Africa because I thought it was funny to say. But he's been actually doing a whole lot of tweeting. And he did post this tweet saying that this is Africa. I didn't even know I had this much influence in other countries this way too. Now, I don't know what influence, like Meek, at one point in time, I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to lie to you. Thank you. That's exactly what these are. Nervous tweets. Okay. Because again, Meek is in Africa right now. He's away from all of this. I don't know where to. Matter of fact, let's take that back. Meek ain't in Africa. Meek is on the moon. He's in a whole nother universe because he was tweeting and retweeting for the past 14 hours on his page. And it finally stopped 12 hours ago where he said, "What's good, Philly?" He said Ghana to be exact. That's where he was talking. He's posting about his tweet. Meek, the peoples want to know what happened, bruh. How did this happen? How did you get here? I don't know. Anyway, y'all ain't come here for all of that. I know what y'all came here for. Y'all came here because y'all want to hear about the Diddy docs. But before we get into them Diddy docs, let me check them likes. Oh no, get them likes up, bruh. Y'all get them likes up. Y'all get them likes up. Get them likes up. Y'all want to hear, because people have been talking a lot about these phone calls that happened between Kalina from Dirty Money and between her and Diddy. A lot of people have been talking about them, okay? And they've been talking about how, there was 58 calls that were made and, all this and all of that. I got what the courts actually said and not interpreting it. Whatever, or chopping it up. We are going to cut it up, but we're going to go to the important parts. So can we please at least get them likes up to 100, 120? It doesn't cost you anything to like the video. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play for y'all. No, not that. Let's go ahead and let's get into this while we're waiting for the likes to get up, because I'm not getting into the transcript until them likes is liking. All right. So yesterday after court, Diddy's lawyer, okay, he decided to address the press. And if you were watching any of the press coverage that was going on yesterday, then you know that everyone was waiting. The press was sitting outside. We were looking at them gold doors for hours, okay? From the morning time into the afternoon time, we were staring at them doors until about 4 something in the afternoon when his lawyer finally came out. We're at 96 likes. Can we get them up? We're at 170 watching at the moment. So can we go ahead and get those likes all the way up? Please, everybody, hit the like. The likes should match the views, people. Let's be honest and let's be real. But let's get into this video as we wait for y'all to get the likes up. Can you guys hear the video? Because it looks like it blanked out on y'all, but can y'all hear it? Y'all can't hear it right now? Okay, I'm wondering why y'all can't hear this. All right, hold on one second. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Okay, we're going to get this video. I don't know why y'all can't hear. Don't worry. Do not worry nor fret. So we're going to stop this and we're going to go ahead and present this instead. Hopefully this one from the Associated Press is a bit better. All right, let's see. There's no sound right now. Wait a minute. You hear that? Can you guys hear that?
I think we don't have a choice. I think we're going by that.
Okay.
No, we can hang back.
Well, I mean, I'm already getting boxed out. Jesus.
Guys.
Okay, good. I'm glad that y'all can hear this. Unless I tried to get it as close to the end as I could. You know, when he's about to come out. Let's see if I can just fast forward it a little bit more. And get to, because this is like really towards the end of the video. All right, here we go. I'm quite sure you guys have already heard this, but we're waiting to get these likes up. Okay, I hope y'all can still hear me. All right. Wait a minute. I hate when that happens. Hold on, guys. Jesus, this is not good. Okay, go ahead. We're going to play the video.
So this was the first step. We have a bail appeal scheduled for tomorrow at 3:30 in front of Judge Carter, the district judge assigned to this case. I think that we made the points that we've been wanting to make. I think it came out. Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation today that changes anyone's mind about anything. He's been looking forward to this day. He's been looking forward to clearing his name, and he's going to clear his name. And we're going to.
He's been looking forward to this day. He's been looking forward to clearing his name. Why is it that this lawyer always tries to make it seem like, you know, oh, this is nothing. It's okay. You know, he's not worried about nothing. He's not stressed. He's in great spirits. Like, bruh, the man went from living a billionaire's lifestyle, sleeping in the most plush beds, eating the finest of foods, sniffing and consuming the best sushi in the world, to laying on a concrete slab in a prison cell. He probably got that warm carton of milk and that cheese sandwich. I'm just saying. But he's making it seem like this is just, you know. And what do you mean nothing in this court, nothing that was said in the court changes anything? Maybe it doesn't change what you feel, think, or are doing as his lawyer. However, some of the things that we have read definitely changed our thoughts and views. Because I wait till we get into the transcripts. A lot of it is repeated stuff, but it's just different when it's just different when it says the United States of America. I just keep harping on that because it's different. This is not the state. This is not the city. This is not the, it's not. It's the United States of America. I understand that that's his job, but stop. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. We'll take the whole, he's looking forward to, having his day in court and all that, but stop making it seem like he's just laid up chilling somewhere at a resort and it's nothing. No, we know that this has been a drastic lifestyle change for him.
I'm going to stand by his side as he does. We believe in him wholeheartedly. He didn't do these things. This was a 10-year relationship. There's no coercion. There's no crime. There's basically just, someone who brought a civil case and now is finding themselves as a witness in a criminal case.
So basically yesterday when people were assuming and we were reading the paperwork, we were actually reading some of the stuff that the state was, the government was bringing up as their reasons for the bail to be denied. It was already coming to the conclusion that this was all based off of Cassie's case, but a lot of people already knew that this was based off of Cassie's case because this federal case came shortly thereafter hers, and then came tumbling down all of the other ones that have been coming out. As recently as just last week, there was a case that came out from Dawn Richards, which we never got a chance to read those court docs, but we will read those court docs and we will find out what she said. But they're mentioning that it was a 10-year relationship, a consensual relationship. However, there are things that go on sometimes within relationships that make things not so consensual, right? And keeping someone hocked up on a substance to alter their mind state and their mental is not something that is always, that's not consensual. Okay. Keeping somebody there because of alleged abuse accusations. Like when we saw that video of Cassie and he was basically dragging her like a rag doll. I want to play it so bad here, but I don't at the same time because it's very triggering and then I don't want YouTube coming after me. But based off of that video, just watching it and seeing how he hit her and she just laid there, and he kicked her and she just laid there, and he dragged her and she just went limp. To me, that is learned behavior, because there is naturally and innately inside of you a fight or flight response. And when somebody is hurting you, your natural response is to fight and then take flight. Okay. So for me, it just shows me that this is something that had gone on, and she learned that if I just lay there, it's not going to be that bad. What did Diamond say? Good morning, Diamond, and salute to you. He said, this is the epitome of having your life go from sugar to shit. I totally agree with that. If y'all saw my post on IG, then y'all would know this lawyer is a quack. Yes, Goddess, I'm going to play your video if you give me permission. Not consensual at all. The fact that the lawyer is downplaying his charges and what's been shown that has actually happened is insane. Okay, so this is the thing. Like what Diamond was just saying, this is his job. His job is to defend him in the court of public opinion, as well as it is to defend him in the courthouse. My thing is, stop making it seem like this is a fluffy experience, bro, because it's not. It's not a fluffy experience. No, nobody wants to hear that he's down and out and he's sad and he's depressed and he's this, that, and the third. However, the truth of the matter is he's not taking this easy. He's not taking this lightly. Nobody would. Imagine your life being flipped upside down. And I'm not saying it's being flipped upside down for no reason. Just imagine. So yeah, he's sitting in jail. He has no money, no power, no influence, no nothing over anybody. He's got to get up when they say, he's got to move when they say. But then again, who knows? This is Diddy and he's in New York, right? So just like we know that there's people that still support him or are in support of him, then we know that there are people that are behind that wall that are probably going to be in support of him as well. But let's continue to listen to what the lawyer has to say. Y'all continue to get them likes up, please, and thank you.
And we're going to fight this case with everything we have, as is he. And eventually he's going to be shown to be innocent. And so tomorrow we fight again. And we'll fight every day until we don't have to fight anymore.
Why did the arrest happen last night instead instead of today as planned?
I don't know. The question is, why did it happen last night instead of today? I don't know the answer to that question.
Are you going to be
I just want to make one point very clear. We have no power. All we can do is show good faith. He got on a plane and he came here. And if he stayed here for 1 day before the case started, or for 1 year before the case started, he was going to stay as long as he needed to stay. It ends up being only 12 days. That's fine. That's what the government wanted to do. The government didn't want him to turn himself in. He came here to turn himself in. Why doesn't the government want him to turn himself in? Because then they can't ask for detention. So they go and they arrest him.
Now he's spinning a story, and y'all are going to see that he is spinning a narrative right now. Because he's like, oh, he came and he turned himself in, but they don't want him to turn himself in. They want to arrest him. He's putting the narrative out there. And I'm going to tell you why he's doing this, as far as spinning these stories the way that he's spinning it, and the reason why he's downplaying the story and the situation the way that he is, because he knows that when this goes to trial, there's going to be a jury. And guess who goes in the jury pool? People like you and I get picked for jury duty. So if we're watching all of this coverage prior to the trial starting, if he can persuade you, you got to understand something, people. The argument starts in the court. Well, the argument starts the day that they sign into being the lawyer, especially on a whole high profile case. They have to fight public opinion. So while we're sitting here like, he's spinning, he's this, and he's lying, his job is to defend him. His job is to give you his argument. His job is to be able to get into your head before you possibly get picked to be a juror, and have you sit in this courtroom and take what he's saying and actually use that to weigh the scales of justice. You understand what's happening? But he's spinning the narrative, making it seem like they're just out to get him. They wouldn't let him turn himself in. He came in here and he did, he came to New York to turn himself in, and that's a sign of good faith. But they're trying to stop his sign of good faith, and they're trying to make it. No, we're going to read the court transcripts, and you're going to find out why, even though y'all probably already know why. The reason why they arrested Diddy is because Diddy was calling Kalina and obstructing justice and witness tampering. That's why he got arrested. Let's keep the facts the facts, but let's listen to his lawyer.
Arrest the guy who came to New York to turn himself in. But we're going to make all these points again tomorrow, and we'll make it as much as we can until we get him out.
Will you appeal the bail?
So that's all I have.
How is he feeling? Will you appeal the bail?
Yeah, tomorrow. But what was the question?
Will you appeal the no bail?
We're
Will you appeal the no bail?
Yeah, we're no bail. No bail.
Where are you appealing?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're appealing the decision to hold him without bail.
When is the next court hearing?
Tomorrow at 3:30.
So today at 3:30, they will be going in for the bail hearing because he has a no bail. And the courts deemed that, no, we're not letting you out. Okay. And that's their choice. That's what they do. Diamond made a good point in the comments. He said he's trying to show Puff made himself available rather than them having to go find him. It's a good PR move. And for the people, it is. But when you got folks like me out here and folks like the Henny legal team, may not work. It may or it may not work because we know why, or we have an idea. Let me say that. We have an idea as to why. Okay? Let's just slide y'all over just a little bit more so I can make room for this screen right here. And we can pull out these good old documents. Okay? Let's pull out the transcripts, guys. And then let's change this so that you guys can see this, because I know some of y'all would like to read along. So let me move myself over here. So I'm still on the screen. And let's get this watermarking. Boom. And let me put y'all comments here. All right. So this transcript, there's a lot that goes on, but I wanted to get to the meat and the potatoes of the actual transcript itself. I did not want to drag this out any longer than it has to be, because as you all know from reading the game's transcripts, these things can get pretty lengthy. Okay. So this is the court addressing everyone. It says, okay, thank you, counsel. I'm required under the law to release you, either with or without conditions imposed, unless I determine that there are no conditions that will reasonably assure your appearance in court as required and the safety of the community. Now, if you remember yesterday when we were reading what the government's argument was for no bail, this is what they were bringing up. They were bringing up the fact that he poses a safety issue to the public, to the community, okay? They also pose that he is a flight risk based to his access to resources and money. They let it be known that he has close to $1 billion in different multiple bank accounts, okay? They also said he has $1 million of cash on hand. He has a private jet. Diddy has boats. Diddy has friends that are in other places. Diddy is friends with Russell Simmons, and Russell Simmons is in Bali. So the last thing that they want to do is give him an electronic monitor and him make it to a private jet and make it all the way to Bali, okay? So they're saying that he definitely is posing a flight risk. They also brought up the obstruction of justice. So let's continue reading on. The government asked that you be detained without bail, and they are entitled to make that request because the government contends that you present a serious risk of flight and obstruction of justice. And because of the nature of the charges against you, which include eggs trafficking and a crime for which the maximum sentence is life imprisonment or unaliving. I don't know what Diddy did that would get him on that unaliving list, but you hear the judge. When it says the court, that is the judge that is talking. This is what the judge is saying to him, that there is a crime which the maximum sentence of life imprisonment or unaliving is there. Okay, so we are having a bail hearing, and I have to determine whether there are any conditions, any combination of conditions of release that will protect the safety of the community and reasonably assure your appearance at trial. In making this determination, I am required to consider several factors, including the nature and circumstances of the charged offense, including whether there are crimes of violence charged, which there are, crimes involving firearms, which there are, controlled substances, the weight of the evidence, and your history and characteristics, which include character, physical and mental condition, family ties, employment, financial resources, length of residence in the community, community ties, past conduct, history of substance abuse, criminal history, and records concerning appearances at prior court proceedings. I also have to consider the nature and seriousness of any danger to any person in the community that would be posed by release. Because this is a presumption case, because you are accused of one of several specified crimes, there is a presumption that no conditions of release will reasonably ensure the safety of the community. And because if there is probable cause to believe that you have committed certain enumerated offenses, including eggs offenses, there is a presumption that no condition of release will reasonably ensure your appearance and the safety of the community. But the presumption is rebuttable, and the government bears the burden of establishing by clear and convincing evidence that you are a danger to the community, or establishing by a preponderance of the evidence that you are a risk of flight. I will now hear from counsel. First, I would like to hear from the government as to why it believes that detention is warranted. So basically, that is the burden of the court. That is what they have to weigh out in order for them to determine whether or not he could be released out on bail. And just listening to those conditions, those things that have to be taken into consideration, we know that he is being accused of a lot of the things on that list: the firearms, the narcotics, his physical and mental health. His mental health cannot be right with all of this that is going on. Let's just be honest. Let's be real, and let's call a thing a thing. Okay. Miss Johnson is for the state, for the government, for the country. Okay. Miss Johnson is the government, the ADA, the AUSA, right? Is that what it's called? The AUSA? Because I'm thinking it's the AUSA. Okay. So Ms. Johnson goes on and says, Your Honor, the defendant, Sean Combs, physically and actually abused victims for decades. He used the vast resources of his company to facilitate his abuse and to cover up his crimes. Simply put, he is a serial abuser and a serial obstructor. I didn't even know that those were things. A serial abuser and a serial obstructor. Wow. As I just mentioned to Your Honor, the government is seeking detention, which I note is also the conclusion that pretrial services has reached in its report after interviewing the defendant. So the government is seeking this after interviewing Puff, Diddy, Love, whatever he wants to go by today. Commissary Love, I don't know. The government submits that the defendant should be detained pending trial because he is an extreme danger to the community. He poses a serious risk of obstruction of justice, which also makes him a danger to the community. And he poses a serious risk of flight because now he's facing significant charges, some with mandatory prison time. Okay? Oh, hold on. Well, hold on one second, guys. Go here, go here, go here, here. Okay. Okay. So I had to close something out. All right. So they're establishing the reasons why. This is a summary of all the things that they're saying he can't. This is why we're saying no. And now they're going to get into the details. As Your Honor mentioned, detention is presumed here under the Bail Reform Act. It's the starting point, and it's the defendant's burden to rebut the presumption, which the government respectfully submits that the defendant cannot do here. The government is going to respectfully request that the court enter an order of detention. As the court knows, the government submitted a detailed letter to Your Honor this morning outlining the facts and basis for detention. So I will highlight some of those here. The facts are set forth in detail in the letter, but in short, the defendant used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause female victims to engage in sexual activity with male commercial eggs workers that he termed freak-offs. Bruh, this is in the federal court building. Freak-offs is going in the dictionary. These were elaborate eggs performances that the defendant arranged, directed, self-pleasured during, and often electronically recorded. They began at least in or around 2009, lasted through at least this year, 2024. Freak-offs have been established since 2009. From 2009 to the present, yes, Diamond, he is. I told them that he's supposed to be in there today for appeal. They began at least, okay, we read that part already, and often took place over multiple days. Now, we read this yesterday, multiple days. Why are y'all like this? Okay, and involved more than one commercial eggs worker. All right. These freak-offs were established and arranged with members and associates of his enterprise who set up the hotel rooms, stocked them with supplies, arranged travel for victims and eggs workers. I don't even want to look in the comments. I'm just going to say it for y'all. Yes, they were stocking it with lube and baby oil. Okay. And delivered bulk cash and narcotics to the hotel rooms, among other tasks. And those narcotics that were delivered or stocked in the rooms were used, at least in part, so that the female victims could continue to participate in freak-offs despite exhaustion and fatigue from these events happening for sometimes multiple days. Whew, baby. The defendant was violent with women, both inside freak-offs and outside freak-offs. At least a dozen witnesses who we've spoken to will confirm that they personally observed the defendant's violence towards women or injuries sustained by female victims as a result of the violence. Okay. In addition to this violence directed towards women, the defendant committed a host of other violent acts. He committed other physical assaults against other individuals, and with the assistance of members and associates of his enterprise, he committed kidnapping and he committed arson. Okay. The defendant also surrounded himself with and used firearms. Those include the 3 defaced AR-15s that the government seized from his residence in March of 2024. One of those was found in his residence in Los Angeles, and 2 were found in his bedroom closet, disassembled in Miami. In Miami, the magazines were loaded with ammunition, and in Los Angeles, we also seized a high-capacity drum magazine with what was loaded with 60 rounds of ammunition. And all of those AR-15s I just mentioned had the serial number boarded through. So they were defaced, okay? And as if that were not enough, Your Honor, what sets this case apart from so many others and what makes this defendant even more dangerous is the defendant's extensive and exhaustive history of obstruction of justice, okay? The indictment charges acts of bribery and witness tampering as predicate offense for the charges for the charged racketeering conspiracy. So because of the bribery, because of the witness tampering and all of that, that's a part of this racketeering conspiracy. And just like the violence I just outlined, the defendant and his co-conspirators have engaged in years-long efforts to cover up the defendant's crimes and to tamper with witnesses. So to get a sense of what I'm talking about, I want to use one example to the court, and that example is March 5th of 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. And this is where they start going into the details of what happened with that infamous video of him and Cassie. All right. The government attached to this submission this morning a video clip that had previously been publicly disclosed by the media in or about May of this year. This incident is critical to understanding both the physical danger of the defendant and the obstruction efforts that he goes to. It is a recorded example of his use of force in connection with a freak off. So this is where people are getting this from, that, there was a freak off going on in a hotel room, because that's basically what is being said right here. That video is connected to a freak off. Okay. And when we get to the end of this example, the defendant was eventually forced to acknowledge that he, in fact, is the individual featured in that video, despite multiple previous denials that this incident occurred. So in short, the evidence would show this: following a freak off. So that means there was a freak off that already happened at the Intercontinental Hotel. Pause. They was having a freak off right before that. How he have all that strength? If they was freaking off for days, how he have all that strength to... Child. The defendant violently assaulted the victim, who was trying to leave the hotel, and he was walking down the hallway to the elevators. He punched her. He threw her to the ground. He kicked her. He attempted to drag her back to the hotel room, and then later he threw a vase at her. And it's after this assault that the cover-up started. Okay? After the victim managed to leave the hotel, or pardon me, when the hotel security was helping the victim leave the hotel, the defendant attempted to bribe a hotel security officer with a handful of cash in exchange for the officer's silence. The security guard, however, refused to be bought. Next, the defendant directed his staff to contact the hotel security staff in an apparent effort to obtain the surveillance video that recorded every moment of that assault that I just described. And as Your Honor can see on Exhibit A to our letter from this morning, These same employees of the defendant were in contact with the victim at the same time to ensure that she would stay quiet and she wouldn't say anything. And within days of that March 5th, 2016 violent attack that was caught on video, the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel server. That's just not a coincidence. That is a result of the defendant's efforts to obtain it through his staff members. And the cover-up of that incident continued for nearly another 7 years. I apologize, Your Honor. The civil suit was filed in mid-November of 2023 that, among other allegations, detailed this assault at the Intercontinental. The defendant issued a public response to the lawsuit, which I will quote, "I didn't do any of the awful things alleged." Through counsel, the defendant released an even more stringent response where he denied, quote, "offensive and outrageous allegations," and described the lawsuit as, quote, "riddled with baseless and outrageous lies." These are unequivocal denials of the defendant's participation in this incident. This happened in November of 2023, and these denials are also further attempts by him to obstruct justice and prevent the truth of this event from being known. So we fast forward to May of 2024. Okay, get them likes up, y'all. When this surveillance video is obtained by the media and publicized, it is only when there is indisputable proof caught on video and published to the world that the defendant admitted he was involved in this assault. The subsequence of events makes crystal clear that you cannot take the defendant at his word. You can't believe him when he denies his criminal conduct. He lies to cover things up, and make no mistake, March 5th of 2016 is just one incidents of violence and obstruction that we have investigated and would prove. This investigation has yielded evidence of numerous assaults against female victims and other individuals. These assaults include choking, hitting, kicking, and dragging victims, often by their hair. The investigation has yielded, which I will talk in a little bit more detail later, detailed evidence of these freak-offs in the form of travel records, communications, hotel records, witnesses, and videos. So this is the kind of conduct I'm talking about when I argue that the defendant is a danger to the community. This freak-off activity is core to this case. It's a way of controlling female victims' lives, method of using physical force against them, all to compel them to engage in exual acts that the defendant wants. And this decades-long history of violent conduct makes clear that even the more stringent bail conditions will not suffice to ensure the safety of this community. The danger inquiry is focused on danger to a real person, and the evidence shows that the risk of danger in this case is acute. The risk of danger is acute towards victims, towards some of the defendant's staff, towards others, and towards other witnesses. His past assaults have caused significant injury and required periods of physical recovery for individuals who have been injured. And what's more, this conduct takes place behind closed doors typically. It typically takes place in settings that are not easily monitored by even stringent conditions of release. And the investigation has further showed that this defendant's violence was both premeditated but often spontaneous. And the spontaneity exacerbates the difficulty of crafting conditions of release. So basically they're saying because he's so spontaneous and premeditated with the way that he goes about putting hands, feet, and knee bows on people, there's no way that we could be able to monitor this to keep people safe from him, because he does it behind closed doors and he knows how to do it without it being caught on camera. You see what I'm saying? So this is why they're saying we can't, there's no bail condition for that. Okay. It's the long-standing pattern of abuse that is really critical here, Your Honor. This pattern has been entirely undeterred by over a decade. Excuse me. This pattern has been entirely undeterred by over a decade, by threats of public exposure and by law enforcement intervention. And it's incredibly probative of which the defendant will continue to act the way he's done for the past few decades. Okay? And the risk of obstruction is also incredibly significant. The defendant's power gives him a unique ability to influence and intimidate witnesses and victims. Witnesses we have interviewed have universally expressed their fear of the defendant. His influence makes it extremely difficult to convince people that they will be safe from his actions. And evidence like the March 5th, 2016 incident that will just outline, make it clear that the defendant is willing to deflect, to minimize, and to lie about his conduct. So now, boom, they got these people. They know who they are. They're reaching out to them. They want to interview them. They want them to come forward. But they're so scared of the reach that this man has that they don't even feel like the government can sustain them. They don't even feel like the government can protect them. You understand? Not Brokeback Brooklyn. What the hell? In reality, Roger was Puff's ties and safety with the streets. You bringing up a whole nother video. Yes, they said not Brokeback. Look, this is why I don't want to listen. I'm about to mute y'all because I can't be watching y'all in the comments. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about here. Okay, and March 5th is not the only incident of obstruction in this case. Following the November civil suit that I mentioned, the defendant and his co-conspirators continued their efforts by reaching out to potential victims and witnesses. This outreach has included several different types of contact. The defendant himself has contacted witnesses, including those who received grand jury subpoenas from the government in this case. And that contact has occurred prior to dates of testimony or meeting with the government. And in one case with an individual who hadn't spoken to the defendant in years prior to the reach out. The defendant also directly contacted at least one victim, which I will circle back to momentarily. So now these subpoenas are going out to these people to come into court. And he's calling them. Now, some of y'all may be asking, how does he know who they subpoenaed? Because when they send out a list of subpoenas, and Diamond, correct me if I'm wrong, when the government is making a list of subpoenas or he decides to make a list of subpoenas, they have to give that list to each other. So they then know who's on that list. So I'm going to wait for Diamond to say if I'm correct or not before I make my next assumption, because right now I am using critical thinking skills to assume that this is what's happening, because I am not a lawyer. But Diamond is very versed in this area. So I want to make sure that I am correct before I push forward. Diamond, don't make me hit the Jeopardy music on you. I'm about to hit the Jeopardy music. There's not. I am correct. Thank you. This here is not easy. What Henny is doing. What happened? This here is disrespecting all Henny is trying to achieve. We only have months or so in. I don't know what you're saying, Freckles. I don't know what happened. Okay, so thank you. Okay, I'm right. Okay, thank you. So he's getting this list of things, this list of witnesses that are being subpoenaed. his lawyer is letting him know who's on that subpoena list. And he is now going into that subpoena list. And he is then contacting the people on the subpoena list. So that's how he's getting into communication with them. So he's intimidating them. That's witness tampering. And that's also considered obstruction of justice, because just imagine you're scared as hell getting ready to step into a courtroom and you've been subpoenaed to make a statement, to come down and have a conversation with them. And all of a sudden your phone rings and it's Diddy on the phone. And you ain't spoke to Diddy in years, but you about to go talk to these feds. And it's the day of, the day before, or 2 days before the day that you're supposed to go in. That's going to intimidate the hell out of people and make them not want to go in there. Or he's going to give them something or say something to them that's going to make them go in there and change their original statement. Okay? Now, that's not for everybody. That's for people who don't understand, because I also know that there are people, shout out to the Henny Gang, international Henny Gang, because there are international Henny Gang members here who are not a part of the U.S., who do not understand how U.S. law works, or do not understand some of the things that are going on in this caseload. So I was explaining that for them. If you already knew, then salute to you for already knowing. Let's continue. Okay? This consistent contact with witnesses is important to understand. And so just one example of this past week is illustrative. On September 10th, pay attention, y'all. This is the one y'all been waiting for. On September 10th, which is a week ago, Dawn Richard filed a civil complaint detailing abuse that she experienced and observed from the defendant. And the allegations in Miss Richards' complaint overlapped in time period with the events charged in the criminal case. So Dawn is backing up some of Cassie's claims. As a lot of you know, because you've already read the court case, I will read the court docs for y'all probably tomorrow. Several days later, on September 13th, another member of a band that Miss Richard had been in with the defendant, an individual named Kalina Harper, released a statement that in sum and substance denied that she saw some of the things that Richard's complaint alleges. And so where does the defendant's contact come in? Well, is in between September 10th and the date of the filing of the lawsuit, and September 14th, the day after the public statement by Miss Harper, the defendant and Miss Harper had 128 total phone contacts. The defendant called and texted Miss Harper 58 times in 4 days. So between the time span of the 10th and the 14th, they had 128 total phone contacts. Phone contacts being calls, text messages, missed calls, voicemails. Those are phone contacts, not the contacts in the phone as in people. Okay. There hasn't been any contact since September 14th after she made her statement, people. This incident is just one way of making clear that this defendant has the ongoing ability to keep witnesses, even witnesses who might have been around for very distant in time abuse, in his pocket and at his disposal. Some of the ways in which the defendant contacts victims and witnesses are also chosen deliberately to avoid detection. Occasionally, intermediaries are used to reach out to individuals. And in one case, the outreach to the victim I mentioned earlier, the communication was recorded on another individual's cell phone. So there's a recording of this. I don't know when we're going to hear this recording, but there's a recording of him at work or his works at work. Child. It's ways like this that make this obstruction incredibly difficult to detect. And from our investigation, we know what's happened on some of these calls. We know that at least one purpose is to spread false narratives and to get witnesses on his side. And by telling them, sometimes gaslighting them into making them think that something happened that didn't happen. So in the calls with the victim that I mentioned, there are 2 calls. This victim is financially supported by the defendant, and 2 calls are recorded. The defendant asked for the victim's support and friendship and attempts to convince the victim that she had willingly engaged in eggs acts with him. So he's coercing this person who's a victim into believing, gaslighting her into believing that it was consensual. In this call, the defendant assures the victim that if she continues to be on his side and provide support and friendship, that she doesn't have to worry about anything else, which is just the thinly veiled reference to continuing that financial support. And that call happened, I believe, 3 days. Sorry, those 2 calls happened 3 days after the filing of the November lawsuit. So in sum, this long history of obstruction and violence demonstrates that the defendant simply cannot overcome the presumption that no condition or combination of conditions can ensure the safety of the community. And I will note that, at least with respect to obstruction specifically, courts have denied or revoked bail in similar situations in this circuit. Then they give an example of the United States versus LaFontaine. At page 134, there were bails that was revoked when the defendant contacted a potential witness and attempted to feed the witness a false narrative with the hope that the witness would adopt it as her own testimony. And this case is truly in the heartland of detention cases of this magnitude and this similar charged conduct. I will just briefly review some similar cases. R. Kelly in the Eastern District of New York was also charged with racketeering and eggs trafficking. He was detained on all 3 grounds: danger, obstruction, and risk flight. Like this case, there was a pattern of obstruction that had occurred. And like this case, the sexual abuse that was alleged was violent and repeated. Jeffrey Epstein from the district was charged with egg trafficking and detained on dangerousness, obstruction, and risk of flight grounds. In that case, the charged conduct was much less recent. And so the obstruction, yet nevertheless, Jeffrey Epstein was detained on those grounds as well. And then it goes on to another case about another person that we don't know about, Keith Raniere, in the Eastern District as well, also charged with racketeering and trafficking, again, detained on all 3 grounds. While the violence in that case was serious, it was not personally committed by Raniere, but the court still found that the defendant was a danger to the community. So they're listing and giving you examples of how, giving the court examples, we did this in this case. So what we just not going to do it in this one. And finally, I turn the risk of flight. The defendant's incentives to flee changed substantially when he was arrested last night. Okay. Those incentives are markedly different today than they were yesterday. And his risk of flight is much more significant and much more pronounced. He is now charged with serious offenses carrying significant, in some cases, mandatory terms of imprisonment. And I will get to next. The evidence is strong and possibly of substantial sentence is one factor to be weighed in assessing flight risk. He's also charged with crimes that are highly sensitive and that risk serious reputational harm to him. And it's the same thing that he has spent the last decade trying to sweep under the rug and trying to cover up. The defendant is a wealthy man. You can see that in the pretrial service report. It's also widely known. The wealth allows him the ability to flee quickly and without detection, should he so choose. His counsel has taken steps during this investigation to minimize flight risk. They had taken his passport, attempted to sell his jet, and reported his locations and travel to government. All of those things have been set. All of those things have been to set them up for the argument here today. To be able to say today that he's not a flight risk. Those things were done when his incentives were entirely different. So what they're saying, what the government is saying is, yeah, he did all of this. Yeah, he's tried to sell his jet. Yeah, he's turned over his past. He's done all of that. Yep. But the circumstances have now changed. And you did all of that to set yourself up to try to get a bail today. So it was a premeditated attempt. That's what they're alleging. Okay. And as I expect, you will hear from defense counsel, the defendant did fly to New York 2 weeks ago at his counsel's advice and has been living in a hotel in the city for the past 2 weeks, waiting potentially for his arrest. So instead of fleeing from the district, he came to the district. But while he's sitting in a hotel waiting to be arrested on federal charges at a time when he should be on his very, very best behavior, he had what appears to be narcotics in his hotel room that were found after his arrest last night. The test results have not yet or are not yet conclusive. So I don't want to suggest that we have conclusive test results, but there are bags of pink powder that are visibly similar to the bags of pink powder that we have seized before from the defendant that have tested positive for ecstasy and other illegal substances. So just one quick note on the defendant's proposed bail package. My focus in the argument now is on detention because, as I mentioned, this really is a heartland detention case. I'm happy if the court has questions to address my concerns in more detail, but from the government's perspective, the defendant's bail package is woefully inadequate. I'm going to use that. Woefully inadequate. Your argument is woefully inadequate. Its focus is on risk of flight alone, and there is not a proposed condition that addresses many of the concerns of danger and obstruction. And in fact, the government submits that there is no way to successfully curtail the types of obstruction that the defendant has been engaging in here. So finally, just a note on the strength of the government's evidence, which is another factor that the court may consider in this decision. The government has spoken to over 50 witnesses, many of whom have personally witnessed the defendant's abuse and seen signs of it. The government has sworn out multiple search warrants for cloud accounts, for electronic devices, and for the defendant's person and premises. The government has received voluntary productions of electronic evidence from co-conspirators. So his co-conspirators are turning in evidence on him too. Let that sink in. They're already starting to flip. Victims and witnesses. Some of these searches have yielded an incredible amount of electronic evidence, over 90 cell phones, laptops, and cloud storage accounts, as well as 30 other electronic and storage devices, such as hard drives, thumb drives, cameras, and surveillance systems. We seized physical evidence from the defendant's residence and with ammunition. Matter of fact, I could have just did this. And the extended magazine I mentioned, and other evidence that corroborate the victim's accounts of the freak-offs. We also obtained documentary evidence of over 300 grand jury subpoenas that have been issued and other voluntary productions. Altogether, this evidence, the electronic evidence and documentary evidence and the witness testimony, it is going to be used to prove exactly what we charged in our indictment. And for freak-offs specifically. They targeting them freak-offs, boy. I don't want to see the freak-offs, but I'm just curious. Like, what the hell was going on that the government... Sorry, Migo. I didn't mean to do that. I dropped something, y'all. I'm scared the dog. What is in them freak-offs that has got them like, nah, we going after him for this? Like, what was so egregious? Was it like Greek mythology? Like, was it like that? Like back in the day? I don't know, child. I don't want to see it. Okay, and for freak-offs specifically, we have communications about setting up rooms, communications with male escorts, about getting to the rooms, about traveling to the rooms. We have the supplies that were used in the freak-offs. We have hotel records often showing extensive damages, and frequently showing reservations made in the names of his employees. And we have videos sometimes of the acts themselves. This is the evidence we will use to prove this case. And it confirms that the defendant is a danger to the community and poses a serious risk to the integrity of these proceedings through his continued efforts at obstruction. Your Honor, for the reasons I have stated here and in our letter, the government respectfully submits that the defendant should be detained pending trial. That was a lot. Okay. Oh, Edna said bestiality, perhaps. I don't know. I bet when he say make it rains, baby. Slip and slide, naked basketball. I'm done with y'all. Not Your Honor, it's just baby oil. I can't take y'all seriously. Okay, so of course, this is where his lawyer starts coming in. And I don't know if we want to read the lawyer. I don't want to hear what the lawyer has to say because I already know what the lawyer is going to say, that he, the freak offs or this. What did he say? Yeah, I don't know if we care to hear his argument. Y'all want to hear what his lawyer had to say? Put a 1 for yes, put a Henny glass for no. If you want to hear what his lawyer had to say. I'm trying to get to what the judge's conclusion was because he talked a lot. All of this is him talking. He talked way more than the state did. He talked way more. My colleague mentioned R. Kelly's case. R. Kelly involved children flat out. Different. Night and day different. Like, yeah, I'm seeing a little mixture. Okay, so I got a 1. Somebody wants to hear. They want to hear what his lawyer had to say. Some of y'all don't want to hear it. I also know some of y'all want to keep me here too. Seems like everybody walked through that humiliation door, right? Probably a little of tantric eggs and bondage and whip actions going on. I mean, but that would be considered normal, right? Oh, be fair. Okay, Diamond said be fair. I'm going to be fair and not biased. Oh, I need to go get me some water because this is a lot. He had a lot to say. Look at this. This is all him talking. This is all him talking. All right. Okay. What can I give y'all to watch? While I run to go get my water. But y'all said this wasn't playing. Y'all said it wasn't playing for y'all. I'm trying to put something on that y'all can watch while I go get my water because I'm getting a little parched. And for the first time ever, I do not have my water, my infamous water bottle with me. Okay, y'all can watch this. Let me put this on for y'all. Okay. I got it. I got what y'all can watch while I go get my water. Here. Refresh your minds while I go get my water jug because I'm thirsty, y'all. And this is a long one.
Combs abused threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair.
Now, I want to take you through a little bit of the indictment that was.
All right, y'all. I'm pouring up. Had to get my water, okay? I had to get my water because y'all want me here. And Diamond is right. I have to be fair and let y'all hear both arguments. I cannot just read one side of the argument and not the other. So Diamond's keeping me honest. And I was just trying to get out of here. Oh, God. Oh, we got to get through this quick. So I really can't be playing around because I got to go to work. I got to go to work, y'all. Unfortunately. Let me make sure that the screen is correct and we got the doc back up. Okay. So here we go. Mr. Agnifilio. I believe that's how you say his name, which is Diddy's attorney. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to address the government's letter and some of the arguments they made in a second. But I want to go through first some things that I think are very important. At the first is this. Something very significant in this case. And for the purpose of what we all are here today and for the purpose of what we are all here today to decide, happened on September 5th of this year, about 12 days ago. And as my colleague with the United States alluded to, that's the day that Mr. Combs flew from where he was living in Miami to New York. We had told the government before he left Miami that let me back up for a second. It became apparent to us because this isn't our first rodeo that we were getting close to an indictment. We met with the prosecutors and their chiefs, and we left the meeting realizing that an indictment was probably coming down soon. We didn't know if it was a week away, 2 months away, but it was going to be in the fall. That's what it seemed to us. I spoke to my client. I said, my recommendation is that you come New York. I think less than 20 hours later, he flew to New York. He landed in New York. I told my colleagues with the government, just so you know, Mr. Combs is in New York, and I would like the opportunity for him to turn himself in. He has come to New York to turn himself in. That's why he is here. And if he doesn't turn himself in, just let me know if you want to know where he is. He wasn't hiding. He was in a hotel, and I will tell you, and the case will start. 12 days later, the case has now started. So we were here because he did the exact opposite of what we see defendants do when they are presenting problems to the court by any means. whether it be of flight risk or danger. He actually came to the district voluntarily. At the time, I didn't know if there was an indictment returned or not. It's none of our business, but we didn't know whether there was. He came here to sit it out, to wait. If he had to wait for 6 months, he would have to wait 6 months. He only had to wait 12 days, as it turns out. But that is a very significant step, and it is only the last of many, many steps. We got involved in the case. This case. Miss Garagos and I got involved in the case in March of 2024. And I want to go through the government, I thought, did a very full job going through the parties on their going through their parts of the investigation. Sorry, y'all. We have been doing an investigation also. And on March 13th, I reached out to my colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I never met any of them. I don't think they met me. I introduced myself and I said, I want to talk to them about certain aspects of the case because I had an idea even then where this was going. And I had an idea, and we will take a step back even further. What? And this is all in the public records by now. A lawsuit has been unsealed in November of 2023. It was unsealed for a very short period of time before it was settled. But but I don't want to get into it because one is being named, but someone who seems to play a prominent role in the indictment. And so what seems to me, and I think is very absolutely right, is that the unsealing of this lawsuit and the settling of that case garnered a tremendous amount of public attention. And I concluded that my colleague with the government read the same newspaper I did, saw that there was talk of eggs trafficking in this civil complaint, which was settled and started an investigation. And by the time we really got wind of it, a few months later, the investigation seemed to be in a higher gear. So basically what he's saying is that Cassie's case started this federal investigation, and that unbeknownst to them, the investigation started right when her case became public. That's what I'm getting from this. That's what I'm gathering. All right. So I contacted my colleague with the U.S. Attorney's Office before the searches. The searches were on March 25th of 2024, and the searches consisted of searches of the residents in Florida and the residents in California. And Mr. Combs was flying with certain members of his family in his plane. They searched him. They got cell phones. They got a lot of phones from the different houses. They got a lot of different items from the different houses. And I will talk about some of that in a second. And that was the day that I first spoke to the prosecutors on the case, in the case. And it was apparent to me because I got the search warrants on that day, and the search warrants had the identical charges, most of the serious ones that we have in the indictment today. So when my colleague says that the world changed yesterday, the world really didn't change yesterday very much, because we knew on March 25th where all of this was headed. Because what was apparent to us based on our conversations with the prosecutors on our review of the search warrant is this was the investigation into racketeering conspiracy, into eggs trafficking, and into violations, the Mann Act, among other things. 3 of those things are now in the indictment. So there's been no dramatic change in circumstance. About a week after the search, Miss Garagos and I flew down to Miami. We met with Mr. Combs for a period of time, and Miss Garagos and I took his passport. We took physical possession of his passport on April 1st of 2024. I called my colleagues with the United States Attorney's Office. I said, I want you to know Miss Garagos and I have Mr. Combs' passport. He sent them an email. We sent them an email, and we said, we're going to have his passport for the duration of this investigation. He's not going to fly internationally. You won't have to worry about that. You're going to know that he is in the United States because we have his passport. And not only that, if he travels domestically during the course of this investigation, we will tell you. And we did without fail. He's basically saying everything that he's saying everything that the U.S. attorney, the AUSA, said. That's basically what he's telling you. Okay. Not only that, if he travels domestically, and we did without fallout. Okay. He went to a graduation. He went to a graduation of some of his children in California. We said he's traveling from Florida to California. We sent an email. He went on a whitewater rafting trip at one point, and we sent an email. Anytime he traveled domestically in the United States during the entire course of this investigation, we told the government where he was going. I have been doing this 35 years. I don't know that I know the last time that has happened, much less us taking his passport. We then took the passports of several of his family members. I have in my hands Mr. Combs' passport plus 5, and I have had these for months. And we told them that we had these for months. And this isn't a show. This isn't, they're just doing this so that they can do better at the detention hearing one day. But that's what it sounds like, and that's what it's giving, because if none of this has ever happened before, if none of this has ever been something that has been, you know what? Let me shut up and let me continue to read, because I said I got to hit the door in a minute. So, yeah. And I'm trying to order my lunch at the same time while I'm talking to y'all, because y'all be getting on me about not eating. All right. This is because we took this investigation absolutely seriously, and as serious as one can in investigation from the earliest stages. And we made what we think to be a pertinent decision with Mr. Combs. We don't do these things without him. We are a team here. We made these decisions together to show the government, to try to earn the government's trust, trustfully, to try and earn the government's trust to say, hey, you know what? We know it's coming. Back in March, we knew it was coming. We know it's coming. And when that day comes, we're going to want you to do 2 things. They haven't done either of them, but we wanted them to do 2 things. We want you to let him surrender and let him just back up for 1 second. What? What? You said you did all of this and it was not in an effort to sway the court. You did it to earn their trust. For what? To be able to sway the court. Am I the only one that caught that? Or am I reading this wrong? Because it's seeming like to me that was all a play, just like he said. You just said we were doing this because we took the case seriously. Then you turn around and say, y'all made the decision. We don't do these things without him. Da 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 da. You turn around and you say that y'all knew this back in March. It was coming. We know it's coming. And when that day comes, we're going to want you to do 2 things. You did this in an exchange for something else. That was the intention. You just shut up. Let me keep reading, because I'm on a limited time right now. And I'm not here to find fault with anything or to say anything controversial. The searches were done on March 25th. Were very scary for people who had no involvement in this investigation whatsoever. Semi-automatic rifles were pulled on completely innocent people. You can see videos of the orange lasers on the chest of one of his children. What does this have to do with him getting bail? I'll tell you what it has to do with it. It has to do with them trying to get sympathy, to say the government did this wrong. Salute to Active Chucks is in the building. Shout out Damu Kiwi Conversations. Okay. You could see that. You could see what seems to be an AR-15 at the head of another one of his children. Did y'all see that? Did y'all actually see one of the rifles pointed at his son's head? I didn't see that. I'm not saying, I don't know. I didn't see it. I can't say it did or didn't happen. All I can say is I didn't see that. Henny Glasses in the chat if you saw them pointing that rifle at his son's head, because I didn't see that. And the kids were marched out. And the other people were marched out. Not through the back of the house, where there wasn't dozens of reporters and news helicopters, but the front of the house so that these young, completely innocent people could be seen in the international news with handcuffs for 2 hours. Handcuffed for 2 hours, completely innocent, not involved in the investigation at all. And we did not want that to happen again. We took great pains so that that would, he said great pains so that that would not happen again. Exactly. And don't lie because you know you didn't see it. This is a sympathy play. This is exactly what I thought he was going to do. But again, I have to be fair. So I'm going to read it because that is true. I have to be fair. And this is one of the reasons he flew to New York. You want me. I know you want me. And I'm here. I'm here. And he came to New York and he told them so that nobody else would be afraid. So that God forbid, there's no tragedy by accident. What? And let me shut up. Reserve myself. I'm gonna reserve myself. Let me just keep reading. Okay, they took accident. The agents in this case are fine people. I've gotten to know many of them. They took good care of Mr. Combs last night. I want to say that. Things happen when people are afraid, and I didn't want anyone to be afraid. He didn't want anyone to be afraid. This case is about him, and here he is, because he came here to face it. I was thirsty. My bad, y'all. We were worried that he had an airplane because, of course, we are. I can't remember when it stated, but Miss Gregorios and I said, you know what? We have to sell that plane. We have to sell that plane. And we started efforts that are essentially a financial management company that deals with a lot of those sorts of issues. I barely own a car. I currently don't own a plane, but it's hard to sell a plane apparently. And we have been trying to sell the plane for about 4 or 5 months. We currently have a letter of intent, which I am told is a good thing when you're trying to sell a plane. So maybe I will actually sell it this time, but we're trying to sell the plane. Why are we trying to sell the plane? If he says sell a plane one more time, I'm going to scream. Because it's not our first rodeo. And we know it's better if he doesn't have access to the plane. So what's the deal with the plane at the moment? Luck would have it, it's being chartered. So I guess what happens with the plane is if you are not going to fly on a plane a lot yourself, a plane needs to be active or else it falls into disrepair. So folks chartered it. And that's what's happening here. So some unrelated party is flying in the plane from Los Angeles to Teterboro Airport. I think landing at Teterboro Airport tonight. That's really a headache I need. The plane that I am trying to keep on the West Coast is flying to Teterboro. Teterboro. I said, Teterboro. But we have nothing to do with it. And the government, to their credit, hasn't made a big deal out of the plane because they see we are trying to sell the plane. I need to ring the bell for my damn self. Where did I put my damn bell? Where did my bell go? There it go. I don't want to say plane again. Okay, because we're trying to say, okay, but that's a significant act, I think, of goodwill and trustworthiness that we are trying to sell the plane. I wouldn't have the, I don't know if tormentory is the right word. I wouldn't be foolish enough to think to come before Your Honor one day. I don't know if it, I don't know it to would be Your Honor. What? I didn't know it would be Your Honor. I didn't know when this day would come with us having this airplane, with us not collecting all of these passports, without Mr. Combs coming to New York and saying, hey, judge, let him go. Well, why would I do that, Mr. Agofino? What have you shown me? What trust have you earned in the eyes of the court? And the answer would be none. But we have, and trust is earned, and we earned it. But he said that was not the plan. He said, and my colleagues with the government, we wouldn't win over them. We tried. We couldn't win them over. We couldn't agree on any substantial bail package. We couldn't get them to turn himself. We couldn't get them to turn himself in. And I get it. That's their right. But wait a minute. But we have, Your Honor. So we have been trying to sell the plane. But coming back to New York, the New York situation, just for a second, one of the things that I noticed from the indictment is there is one victim in court. Oh, there's one victim in count 2 and the eggs trafficking charge. There is one victim. One of the things that's happened, and I will take my third step back, when the complaint of the civil case was unsealed around Thanksgiving last year, November of last year, there was a flurry of other civil cases, many of them. I think 12, 15, I don't know the civil stuff. Miss Gergag, Garagos, thank you. But there is another lawyer who does. We were getting a new civil case every week, sometimes 2 a week. And what it seemed to us, and I'm not despairing anything, is people were jumping on a bandwagon of sorts. I think someone noticed, wow, Mr. Combs wrote a settlement, the settlement is confidential, so I'm not going to say what it was, but it was large. Mr. Combs wrote a very large check to someone who he was in a relationship with for 10 years, who is the person in count 2. And I will get to that in a second. 10-year relationship. If he's writing checks, I want my check. And everyone lined up to get their checks. And we're getting an endless supply of civil cases, of civil lawsuits. Why don't we know this endless supply of civil lawsuits? I don't understand. Okay, so I had no idea that this indictment came down, and I had no idea. Are we going to have one victim? Are we going to have 12 victims? I didn't know. I was ready to read 12 victims. I was happy to see there was only one. So it's not as though this indictment is somehow worse than we imagined. It's, if anything, better than we imagined, and eminently manageable from our perspective. I won't belabor the point. I noticed in the pretrial service report, I think they say that Mr. Combs should be detained because he has a criminal history. I don't know that that's right. He went to trial in a New York State court in 2021 and was acquitted, fully acquitted. And one thing that I think is noteworthy, and I would be derelict to my duties if I didn't bring it up, is that was quite a serious case, and he went to every court appearance. He went to every court appearance for the year or so that the case was pending, and he went to every court appearance. And then a jury of 12 New Yorkers, just like a jury of 12 New Yorkers one day will hear this case, acquitted him. So he knows what it's like. He knows what that involves. And it looks like he's going to have to do it again. And he's ready to do it again. And he came here to do it again. Yo, I swear to God. Diamond, you still in here? I'm holding you accountable for this headache that I'm getting. Exactly, Sherman. He's talking without talking. You and me both. Time check is 2:00. All right. So I don't think that he does. I don't think that he does have criminal history in terms of felony convictions. I don't think that he has any felony convictions. I think there might be a misdemeanor that goes back some period of time, but I think that's it. One of the other things that is in the pretrial service report that I just want to mention briefly is that, and this is mostly a confidential matter, so I don't want to get into too much of it. One of the things Mr. Combs is doing in New York is getting treatment and therapy for things that most respectfully he needs treatment and therapy for. And I say that as his lawyer, and he is getting that. And I noticed that in the pretrial service report, they had that as a reason to detain him. I don't see the world that way at all. I think everybody has flaws. I think that some of what the government's presentation, this afternoon relates to is that Mr. Combs is not a perfect person. Let me order my food. Because what? I understand that this is his job as an attorney, and I know that it is his job to try to get his client the best possible outcome, but to completely disregard and sweep this under the rug like, oh, he's just an imperfect person. These acts are egregious. There is no he's just an imperfect person and we all have flaws. Anyway, there's been drug use and there's been toxic relationships, and I think they were mutual in their toxicity. And these things tend to be, and if he has seen fit at the ripe old age of 54 to really take things into his own hands and try to be better for the rest of his days, I think that is the only positive, only a good thing. I don't see anything negative in that. I think if there is one thing that we have seen in a country and as a justice system is if someone wants to stand up for themselves and try to get the help that they need, we stand with them. We stand with them. We don't say, wow, you're trying to get help that you need. We think you should be in jail now because you're trying to get the help that you need. That's a freaking lie. So I appreciate the efforts of pretrial services and their observations and the hard work that they do and always do. But I very much disagree with the aspect of the report. I want to talk a little about the government sentencing letter. I think many of things that my colleague talked about in terms of obstructing justice is not actually obstructing justice. And let me name a few. They talk about my colleague. My colleague talks about March of 2016, and this is an unfortunately fairly well-known event because somehow we will never know how exactly this hotel footage found its way to CNN and found its way to the rest of the world. I wonder how that happened. We didn't have it. The government had it. it got to CNN on the day that Donald Trump wasn't having any court proceedings, on a day that was sort of slow news day. It was a sort of slow news day. The news picked it up because CNN got this videotape. And we all saw it, and I saw it, and Mr. Combs saw it, and Mr. Combs issued an apology. Isn't that a wise thing? Was that not a wise thing? I don't know. He wanted to do it. It meant something to him, and he apologized. And that's what he did. Now, one thing that's important about the video, and since the government talks about some of the evidence, we have to talk about some of the evidence. What I think the evidence is going to show about the events leading up to this video being made is that two people were in a hotel room, Mr. Combs and victim number one from count number 2. See how you throwing Cassie underneath the bus? Having looked through more text messages and emails than I care to, and think the government would agree, one of the major issues in the couple's relationship at that point, and at many other points, is that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend. Okay. And victim number one was looking through Mr. Combs' telephone when Mr. Combs was asleep. Found evidence that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend. She was not the only one. She hit him in the head while he was sleeping with his cell phone and then took his clothes. She has 2 bags as she runs in the hallway. In one of those bags is Mr. Combs' clothing. All of it. And she left him in a hotel with no clothing, having hit him in the head in his sleep with a cell phone, which is why he came out the hallway in a towel. Now, I'm not going to comment on the video because my client commented on the video and we all know what we saw. But to the extent that the government says that this is somehow evidence of eggs trafficking, it's evidence of Mr. Combs having more than one girlfriend and getting caught. And that will be shown resoundingly, not just by my words, but by the written communication between those two. And let me talk about that for a second. This 10-year relationship, this eggs trafficking, is a 10-year relationship. What? This egg trafficking is a 10-year relationship. These two people were in love. That will be made abundantly clear by the way they speak to each other, by the way other witnesses describe their time together, and by the circumstances of how they broke up. They were in love, but Mr. Combs wasn't always faithful. There was someone else. One person, maybe more than one person. This was the source of great hurt to victim number one. And at the end of the day, there was mutual philandering, and victim number one ended up marrying the trainer that Mr. Combs got for her and had 2 children. That signaled the end of the relationship. They had been cheating on each other for years, but now she had 2 kids. But now she had 2 kids with the trainer, and that was the bridge too far that led to their relationship coming apart. Years and years and years later, when I submit victim number one realizes she had a pretty good thing for 10 years with Mr. Combs. They were in love. It was exciting. She was a recording artist. He had a recording studio. Things I don't want to comment on in her present life. I have no idea what it's like. Maybe things with the trainer weren't quite the same as they were with Mr. Combs, and she does something that is very significant. If we're going to talk about the evidence in this case, she has her lawyer call Mr. Combs's lawyer, and in a recorded conversation for 8 minutes and 12 seconds, where her lawyer says, "My client has written a book about your relationship." She's not talking about eggs trafficking, and she's not talking about eggs crimes. My client has written a book and she's going to publish it. But if you want to buy the rights, then you will have the exclusive rights and she won't be able to publish it. And if you know what, you can buy the rights for $30 million. A recorded conversation, the government has it. We have it. The conversation, I guess, didn't go so well for her and the lawyer. So the next thing we know, it's now November of 2023, and she has a different lawyer. And this lawyer is not interested in intellectual property for $30 million. This lawyer is saying, I'm going to bring a civil eggs case because the statute of limitations allow me to do that, because there's been a change in the statute of limitations that allows me to do that. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not really here to embarrass you anymore to the tune of 30 million. I'm going to bring this civil eggs claim against you. It's negotiated. Miss Gregorios and I are not involved in the case yet because there is no criminal component to it. And that's significant to what I'm about to get into in a second. The case settles for an undisclosed and large amount of money. And then we have a torrent of other civil cases. Now, one of the things the government talked about, and they talked about obstruction of justice, is things that seem to have happened around the time that this lawsuit settled and other lawsuits came in. Certainly, Mr. Combs did not know about the Southern District investigation at this time period. I mean, absolutely nothing. And one of the important, my colleagues mentioned this case called Lafante, and they cited it to you. And I read Lafante just before we came today. And the difference in Lafante is Lafante was charged. Lafante was in jail. Lafante was released, and he was told, don't contact any of the witnesses in the case. So what does Lafante do? He gets released and he starts calling witnesses. So that is a drastically different situation than we have here, where Mr. Combs doesn't even know that there is a criminal case. No one knew there was a criminal case afoot. So wait, what? How you going to say nobody knew that there was a criminal case afoot? But the whole reason for him leaving and going to New York was because y'all knew that an indictment was coming down. So how you can't get an indictment? My colleagues were saying these things happened in November of 2023. There is no criminal lawyer involved. I'm not involved. Mr. Combs has no idea that there is a criminal case going on. So I don't see any of these things as obstruction of justice. No, when you get a whole list of people who are being subpoenaed and you decide to go and call said people that are on that subpoena list, that is obstruction of justice. That is witness tampering. What I do see, looking at things in the light most favorable to the government, is there is a tremendously embarrassing event for Mr. Combs. Not something he thinks is criminal, not something that is under investigation. What happened on March 5th of 2016, I know of no DA investigation, no police investigation, no federal investigation surrounding this video that we all saw from March of 2016. The problem isn't that. The problem is it's embarrassing. This is a man that's involved in very significant business deals and in very significant business transactions. He can't afford, quite frankly, to be seen in a towel hitting a girlfriend. He is not trying to stop a criminal investigation. There is no criminal investigation. He and his person had a mutually toxic relationship for quite a while. So is that what we're going to do now when people come into court with domestic violence cases? We're going to say that it's a mutually toxic relationship? Shortly after the events that are depicted on the videotape that we all saw, Mr. Combs checked himself into a rehab facility because he is doing too many drugs and he has an unhealthy relationship and he knew it. And he had the withdrawal to try to go get help. The wherewithal to go get help. And this other person, I believe, got help around the same time. So this is not a one-sided thing. Now, why would it be depicted as a one-sided thing? There's 30 million reasons. There's 30 million reasons for this to be depicted as a one-sided thing. One for each dollar that was being sued for. These people didn't go to the cops. These people didn't go to the law enforcement. This woman didn't say, my goodness, I'm a victim of eggs trafficking. I'm going to go tell the law enforcement. The first thing she did is say, I'm going to write a book, but for 30 million, you can buy the rights. That's the first thing she did. And the second thing she did is she brought a civil suit. So when they talk about the evidence in this case being strong, I respectfully dissent. The evidence in this case is deeply problematic. Now, this is not the time to litigate a very complicated criminal case, but the stretch of the evidence is one of the factors that we are told we have to think about. So that's why I'm talking about it. In terms of what happened recently with the Dawn Richards lawsuit and someone named Kalina Harper coming out and saying what her experience was, this is the furthest thing from witness obstruction I could think of. A person brings a civil lawsuit, another person from the same band that the person who brought the lawsuit was in, and the civil lawsuit is all about. Combs was hard on us. He drove us. He made us work all the time. You know, he did a couple of inappropriate things. And so someone with the exact point of view, as the civil plaintiff comes forward and says, in essence, and this is, I thought it was a soft, respectful statement. And the statement was, I'm not taking away her experience. That wasn't mine. That wasn't my experience. She's entitled to her experience. I was there. That's not what I saw. That's not what I saw. That's two witnesses having diverged recollections of a similar event, and I expect this trial is going to feature exactly that. So there is nothing wrong with that. That's why we have criminal trials and civil trials. I have the obstruction of justice seriously. I take the obstruction of justice seriously, obviously. And one thing I note, and my colleagues said, that there is nothing Your Honor can do to stop Mr. Combs from obstructing justice. One thing that I think is noteworthy, and my colleagues have investigated this case exhaustively for several months, and I give them credit for that, is that the only thing they can say since the time Miss Gargaros, Miss G, I'm tired of trying to say her name, and I have been involved in the case, is the other witness said something different than the first witness. I'm not even sure Dawn Richards is a witness in this case. I'm not asking, but I don't really see how she would play a role. So I have to say, quite frankly, Your Honor doesn't have to do anything to make sure that he doesn't obstruct justice, because he hasn't done a darn thing since we've been involved in this case. And even taking everything that the government says as true, that's true. Okay. There's a section in the government's letter called eggs trafficking and abuse. And I want to talk about that because eggs trafficking is a very serious crime, and I want to address it head on. One victim, 10-year relationship. It seems like what their theory is that as part of the way that these two adults wanted to be intimate together is that on occasion, a third person, a male, would come into their situation and have sexual contact with the woman. And from what I heard the government say, and Mr. Combs would not have sexual contact with the male, but you know, this male would come and have eggs with the woman. All right. So Miss G and I have interviewed a half a dozen of these males. We have been a bit as busy as the government has over the last 6 months. And I can represent to Your Honor. I have asked all the questions I could think of. Did anything ever seem remotely consensual? Was anybody too drunk? Was anybody too high? Did anyone express any hesitation? Was there the slightest inkling that possibly the woman wasn't consenting? No. I think my colleagues spoke to some of the same people, and I expect that they heard the same thing. Now, listen, okay, first of all, due to time restraints and all of that, and as you can see, he continues on talking for a little ways. It's kind of like more of the same. Let me see if I can, because it's 2:30. I'm gonna have to try to get up out of here. But there's a lot of rebutting that's going on in this, and the state and he are going back and forth. But at the end of the day, the court made their decision that they were not going to give Diddy any bail. Okay. And for me, just based off of what we heard, yeah, I was trying to do the thing of being fair and getting both sides of the story out there. The testimony and all of that. This is going to be something. Listen, I'm going to drop this video into an AI and let the AI read it for y'all. because that's a lot. But with his lawyer, it's like a lot of, to me, it seems like it's a lot of fast talking and talking around and dancing around the situation. It's a lot of downplaying that's going on. And I understand that that's what he's supposed to do, but I got a headache. And usually when I get a headache, it's because things don't make sense and I'm trying to make sense of the things that don't make sense. Okay. You can argue the point and say that they were in a relationship for 10 years and that this was possibly consensual between the two of them. However, it's an extensive history. You cannot say that this man was doing a lot of drugs, yet no drugs were being taken, or trying to make an argument that Cassie wasn't under the influence, or victim number one, excuse me, wasn't under the influence of substances or things of that nature. People that have been groomed to do certain things respond a certain way. We don't know. What I do know is freak-offs have been going on, or rumors have been going on for years. So if it's to debate whether or not a freak-off is really happening here, they have evidence of it. And I think that's the part that people keep forgetting about, is that there is evidence of the things that the government is saying actually happened. I do find this very interesting that they got a quick turnaround for bail. But then again, we followed federal cases with celebrities before. They don't always move so rapidly. So let's see what happens today. It's all very much crazy work. Let's see what happens today at the bail hearing. I didn't know that we were going to run into this time crunch like this, or else I would have gone way, way earlier than now. But I will give y'all the whole thing from top to bottom. Actually, I'm going to leave this here as it is, and we can actually just pick up where we left off at. But this is a lot, and I think I've read enough of his lawyer's argument for people to get an idea of exactly what it is that he's putting out there in court. It's to downplay, deny. Okay. And that's what he's supposed to do to defend Diddy. So it's just a little, what I do find interesting, and I will say this, is the fact that they're bringing up this book deal and saying that this book deal is recorded on tape. So as this case begins to come out, it seems like there's going to be a lot of evidence that is going to be used. Now, they're talking about there being one victim in the case that's being named. However, they've mentioned that there's been multiple people that have been victimized. They also witnessed they also have the 300 subpoenas that went out. They have 50 witnesses to things. So it's not like they don't have a case. And let's be very clear. The FBI does not go after people. The feds do not go after people unless they can win. Okay. And they're in the Southern District of New York, and they have a very high success rate. Okay. They have very low cases where they get beat. So this is going to be interesting to follow. I want to thank y'all for tapping in and tuning in with me. This has been a 2-hour read, and we still aren't done. Woo-wee. But I will definitely be back to holler at y'all a little later on. I do apologize that my schedule does not permit for me to continue speaking. But yeah, I will get those docs out to y'all. So y'all know what I'm going to tell y'all. When you vibe high. Yes, 97% success rate. When you vibe high, so the bullshit don't stick. Y'all be sure to let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Shout out to the replay gang. Y'all get them likes up. Like, y'all got to start liking these videos when you come in, not just on my channel, but everybody's channel. If you got 600 people in there watching, you should just have 600 people that do a like. It helps. But anyway, I love y'all and appreciate y'all. And I will see y'all in the next video. Peace, y'all.